You've come to the right place for Broadway's brightest stars, biggest shows, and amazing musical performances. I'm Tamsen Fadal, and it's The Broadway Show. Here we go. Broadway's been turned upside down by Stranger Things, The First Shadow. It's a prequel to the hit Netflix show. I sat down with the star of Stranger Things on Broadway, Tony nominee Louis McCartney. Let's talk about the character, Henry Creel. Do you have to have seen Stranger Things to be able to understand and appreciate the show?
Well, yes and no. So we're a prequel, and it's an original story taking back the idea that Henry Creel, played by Jamie Campbell-Bower in the TV show, he is an enigmatic sociopath, psychopath who likes to kill, and he's very defined by his actions, and you want to be him, you want him to charm you. You know, he's a very confusing character. And then here, we're giving a bit of paint to that. You're saying, why is he like that? And it's Henry Creel as a good kid, and basically you don't need to see it, one, because it's a prequel, but also because we follow a narrative structure that is very easy to understand, and it's very human, and it's very Greek. You know, you'll have a Hamlet archetype, you'll have the protagonist, Henry Creel, you have the love interest, you have the mother, you have Dr. Brenner, who's this terrible, lovely antagonist played by Alex Bro. Everybody's doing a wonderful job, and it does unlock things for season 5. I know you might think I'm lying when I say that, but I'm not. There is lore in this.
I love that.
And it's a big lot of fun.
What is it like every night? I mean, the energy that you put out there every night is immense, right? Can you talk a little bit about that process and your voice?
It is a lot of physical activity, but I love it. I've got I did a bit of gymnastics when I was younger. I did dancing, and I'm double jointed in some places. So I'm lucky that my body has kind of been knowing how to move like this. But in London, it took 6 months before I could properly do it. We had the blueprints for it. Mm-hmm. We knew what we wanted. We had this idea that he was a young kid and then boom, monster. And once we got that, it became very two-tone, and we started to develop a language in the movement so the audience could understand what was actually happening and how that would feel. Not just oh, he's possessed or he's going through a lot right now. And yeah, the voice was another thing that I was worried about, and it took a lot of time because we had to develop this childlike innocence in the American accent and then Vecna. And we have the program that adds bass and violence to the voice, the gravelly thing that makes it seem like that. But if you speak normally, you sound like a robot. So we do things where you talk like this, and you drop your voice. And then I also do a gravelly thing, but that just happens on stage. I can't do it now. It would be too loud.
I understand.
You know.
Would it be too loud?
Yeah. It's
now you've made me curious.
Because I'm shouting in a healthy way.
Oh, okay.
You know. That was another thing, was doing it healthily.
How does your family feel about everything? Have they been here to see you and excited?
Yeah, they've come to England, not New York yet. They're both very busy. They loved it. The main thing my dad said, what he was proud of, was that he said I had taken the voice and made it a part of the character, which is another thing I learned, that I wasn't just doing an accent. I wasn't just I'm an American and I'm doing an accent. You know, it's
is that how we sound?
No, but that's it's a gimmicky acting.
Yeah.
You know, it's you can tell that's not my real voice. It's a character
of an American.
Yeah, it's oh, he's putting on an accent. And then the illusion's gone, and you guys are just, every time I step on stage, it's oh, here's the actor now. Mm-hmm, What's he going to say his lines? You know, it's not a real person going through something.
That's great.
So that's what we developed on, and he was I noticed that, and I was really? I was I didn't even think about it before.
That's fascinating, but that gives the emotional connection. That's why people they get entrenched into the story instead of distracted.
Yeah.
Right?
Real kid, real problems, you know?
The revival of Ragtime is Broadway at its best and more timely than ever. Don't miss this new production at Lincoln Center. Here's Paul now with the stars.
Ragtime on Broadway, starring you four. I love this. You know, when I interview actors who are in revivals, it's very common for actors to say, this show is more relevant than ever. It's kind of a classic line that actors say about revivals, right? But wow, you're doing Ragtime in 2025. I don't know if anyone has ever been able to own that statement more. Your characters represent hardworking Black Americans. You're sort of the sheltered elite, right? And you're the hopeful immigrant who comes to America. And in the musical, we get to see them all come together and we get to see them interact at a time when I don't know that everyone feels like that's happening on the streets of America, correct?
Sometimes we talk about like how useful we feel as artists at this time. Sometimes you want to go protest, sometimes you want to go, just yell in the middle of the street. We get to be in Lincoln Center, and our act of service is showing America what America is, in its glory and in its lessons that it has to learn. And to be able to do that, that is like just the crossroads of art and service and purpose. And I feel like I go to sleep after rehearsal, just being like, no, I've done my part.
How about for you?
I mean, it feels like we're doing like an act of service for other people. And this is like what we signed up for theater to do, is to inspire people, to give people that hope, to tell these stories. And even from the first day, when we were all just standing in that circle, I think we all could just like look at one another and see that in each other's face. It just feels bigger.
To meet this material each day in a very different space based on what has happened in the world has been really interesting too. Some days I'm playing mother from a real mothering standpoint. I'm a mom to 2 young kids, and I'm bringing so much of that experience into this. Sometimes I'm really resonating with the immigrant story. I'm an immigrant. Sometimes I'm really resonating with the Jewish story. I'm a Jew. And it's the same, but it's different every day because you're different every day. And I think that's going to be really interesting to watch ourselves navigate and the audience navigate too.
I find something new, like Casey was saying, every single day, every single time we run this show. I mean, every single layer of this show has something that speaks to this moment. It feels like it was written yesterday. But we keep reminding each other how lucky we are. I mean, it's not lost on any of us how lucky we are. It also is at the same time, very devastating in some ways that this feels so relevant right now. We have been given the space to bring ourselves to these parts, and there's just an authenticity to it.
Yeah, how does it feel to actually have these moments on stage, like Wheels of a Dream or Back to Before, these moments? What is it like to actually take in those moments as a performer?
It's crazy. You were talking specifically about the many things that you are, and Wheels of a Dream, for example, it's hard to get through sometimes because it's so beautiful. It's almost too beautiful for words. And, but that's what we want the audience to feel. It's almost like blindness, not blindness to reality, but that beauty is possible.
I mean, I will say about Back to Before, it's such a iconic song that has a lot of lore behind it, and it's so easy to kind of get caught up in that. But every time I sing it, I find something new each day in it because it asks so many hard questions. It costs something, and I think that's something all these characters deal with in the show. It's they learn, they are changed by the people around them. And it's going to be really special to have this proper run, this exact moment in time to kind of explore all these questions again.
Two strangers carry a cake across New York. That's both the title and premise of a new Broadway musical. Here's Beth Stevens with another edition of Building Broadway.
Two strangers carry a cake across New York. Very specific, very intriguing. You two are bringing a story that takes place in New York City to New Yorkers this time. How does that feel to present this show in New York City?
It is very thrilling, but it's also an immense responsibility. Because it feels like even with any musical, this is the most distinguished audience in the world for musical theatre. So bringing any show from out of New York into New York is already a kind of daunting prospect. A show that's set in New York, the responsibility is magnified 1,000 times. But I also really believe that the version of New York that we've created along with Tim Jackson, our director, is something that New Yorkers will get a kick out of. The way that we've been thinking about it is New York is a mythical city, a bit like Oz or the Emerald City in Oz, or a bit like Cair Paravel or somewhere, just with the added detail that it happens to exist in real life.
I mean, it doesn't feel that way on the subway. But no. I do think that there is a romantic version of New York to people who don't live here. And that seems to be what inspired you two, because my understanding is that you had not spent a lot of time here when you were writing the show.
We'd only been here as tourists, so we'd never really lived here. And the story, our show is told from the perspective of somebody who has a rose-tinted image of the city of New York. And for him, he's absorbed New York primarily through the cinema, but also from music and books. But he's watched and watched again movies set in New York, which is kind of true of us as well. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably not living in New York was both a help and a hindrance, in that if we were writing a show about London, we probably wouldn't be able to be so sort of in awe of the place, because we were able to just take all the best bits that we were receiving across the sea and sort of make a show about it.
What was your idea of New York versus what your personal reality was when you finally got to spend some real time here?
I think some of the really nice things about coming to New York is sort of like the community that you really find here. Like, London often feels like it's not really lived in. It's sort of like a museum or something. But in New York, even right in the center of town, you really feel like people are living here, and they know all the restaurants and these lovely old shops. And
if somebody visits London, I always feel a bit worried, because I think they're bringing with them the equivalent fantasy, right? And they're thinking Dickensian cobbled streets and like little weaselly pub-like, like den-like pubs where you could get lost, and there might be, Oliver Twist might pop out from behind a corner at any moment, accompanied by Jack the Ripper. But and so I worry that London is a bit corporate and that people will be disappointed when they come here, because it's like London isn't maybe very London.
That's really funny, because
Whereas
as
New
you were
York is
talking,
very New
I was
York.
thinking the same thing about New York.
Not
I was
to
thinking,
us.
oh, but all the chain stores and the...
Yeah, but
the
it's
Dwayne
not
Reed,
like London.
I think compared to London, though,
There's many more independent businesses here. The theatre industry feels like much more welcoming, much more tangible. But even when you were saying earlier, it's like, oh, it doesn't feel romantic on the subway. To us, it kind of does feel romantic. Like even somebody kind of yelling, "Watch it," is part of that in a way.
Maybe Happy Ending is a reigning Tony Award winner for Best Musical. It's critically acclaimed and it's totally original. It's got robots and a rom-com on a road trip. Everything you can ask of a Broadway musical.
Today the smiles too are warmer than the norm.
Here's Perry Sook.
All right, we are here in the calling room with Justin Scribner. We're sneaking up on showtime. There's a lot going on already. Just how does this show that is so extensively technical get started every day?
We have an incredible group of people, 19 different crew members, 3, sometimes 4 stage managers, and an amazing front of house team that all come about 90 minutes before the show to prepare. And our crew is made up of some really incredibly skilled technicians that handle I think we have 450 video tiles. Here You're able to see kind of each individual tile. The back wall is a different kind of video tile than is all around the proscenium, which we're giving away a little bit of inside scoop on how much video is in the show, but when the show starts, it takes place in an apartment, and you don't really have an idea that there's actually going to be a huge world around them, and we stay in their apartments for half an hour, 45 minutes, and the whole genius design of our designers put together a very small little musical with just 4 actors that then becomes a full stage kind of extravaganza that is made up of turntables and automated scenery that weighs more than 1 ton each, and these irises that move in and out, and the way that they've integrated lighting and video and our scenery is very intricate, which means we have to check every single aspect of it before the show starts every single day to make sure we're safe, and every single crew person has a lot on their plate, including the stage managers.
Yeah, how many calls are there, and how many unique types of calls? I mean, because obviously you have your standard lighting cue and mic up, mic down. There's shoots with magazines coming out. There's automation. There's lights lining the automation as it moves. There's fireflies flying out of things. How many types of calls do you have in this show?
Well, luckily, for the most part, everything that I'm calling is either a verbal call on headset, or a cue that I'm cueing with a cue light. So I turn on the cue lights to warn people and I turn them off to make things happen. There are cue lights built in backstage. On top of Oliver and Claire's unit, there's also cue lights out in the house. I think there are like 900 lighting events. There are the scenery moves 500 times. There is a significant amount of responsibility on the shoulders of the person calling the show, and I really truly feel like many experiences have built me up for this particular moment, but I do not foresee any sort of technical issue being a stumbling block for us. We're going to be able to get through it. I trust the people in the building, and building that trust is like the most important part of this whole process.
This is The Broadway Show, and we're back in just a few. This week we're back with another incredible community initiative with the help of our friends at The Outsiders. The Stay Gold Project is designed to keep young people at the heart of the theatrical experience.
It is truly the best feeling in the world to know that something I was part of making is reaching more people. We have these incredible student matinees. They often are like the most lively performances, and they feel like rock concerts.
Through partnerships, The Outsiders provide students with subsidized tickets, classroom resources tied to the show, and the team even asked for feedback from a dozen New York City high school students during the early rehearsal process.
Teenagers are the most honest audience that one can have, and so seeing them moved by the show was really powerful. And we also had them fill out questionnaires because a lot of them were reading the book as well, and so to hear things like, this is more vivid than what I imagined, or this is exactly what I saw, or this feels to me like how the book felt, was really affirming. And also early in the development to hear them say like, this part was confusing. And so I feel like they've been an instrumental part of how we've built this show and who we're looking to make it for.
S.E. Hinton's iconic novel has long been a formative story for high school students across the country. And this program promises to help keep that tradition alive.
Especially in high school, you have a lot of different people and like you might not get along, you know? But I think it's like with Cherry and Soda Pop, it's like even if you have a lot of differences, you're still able to find like something in common with their poems and their books.
Yeah, there's always like two different groups and not everyone gets along, but you always try to fit in, and I think that's like so relatable to everyone. The emotions that you feel, like the actors just put the emotions there and you could feel it. That's what I like about the show.
Yeah, I felt the emotion, like the police scene, that was really good when they started flashing the flashlight. That was everything for me. And then like the sad, like you could feel their emotion in your body and you're taking all that in and you're putting it into your perspective.
Something I found really relatable was to keep your family close and like respect and understand what they do for you, because I feel like a lot of people take that for granted, like, and you don't realize it, but like your parents might not come from great backgrounds and they try to give you the best that they can.
One of my favorite moments is coming out to the stage door and getting to see people be like, you know, I didn't really like musicals, but this one's all right. Yeah, I kind of like it. And you're like, you liked it. It touched your heart somewhere, even though nowhere in the world did you see yourself as a musical theater lover. This story has pushed through this art form and reached your heart, and I think that's so cool. Nothing is cooler than hearing them say we're their first Broadway show. That is always makes me tear up a little bit.
Now with the North American tour underway, The Outsiders are expanding the Stay Gold Project to schools across the country, creating new opportunities for students to connect with live theater in meaningful ways, right in their own neighborhoods. The powerful production is coming soon to a city near you, and you don't want to miss it.
The touring cast is really young, which I think for teenagers who see it as it's going is going to feel really, really visceral and true. The show allows us all to feel like young people, and it takes away the wall between adult and kid. Grown-ups are teenagers and are little kids, and we never stop being that. We might forget that we are, but the show is so visceral that it's like, this is about all of us.
Step inside the world's most haunting love story. It's Masquerade, a reimagining of Phantom of the Opera off-Broadway right now in New York City. Let's head to the studio now for an exclusive musical performance.
Slowly, gently, night it unfurls its splendor. Grasp it, sense it, tremulous and tender. Turn your face away from the garish light of day. Turn your thoughts away from cold, unfeeling light, and listen to the music of the night. Let your mind start a journey through a strange new world. Leave all thoughts of the world you knew before.
That's all for now. I'll see you next time. I'm Tamsin Fidel, and this is The Broadway Show.